This is an incredibly important topic because we're talking about health. This is something that we discuss all the time with friends, colleagues, family members, and I really want to go deep and talk about some advanced vocabulary when it comes to both physical and mental health. We're going to look at some idioms, individual words, useful phrases, and before we begin, if you are interested, if you're someone who likes building your vocabulary, practicing and improving your speaking skills, check out the link in the description if you would like to join my speaking course. It's for upper intermediate to advanced speakers, and the course is all about helping you speak confidently, speak clearly, and speak naturally. So click on that link down below if you'd like to learn more or join the course, and yeah, I hope to speak to you soon. So let's go ahead and get going because there's a lot that I want to cover. I actually have quite a few words and phrases that I want to go over, and we're going to start with some idioms. Idioms that are related to health in one way or another. Of course, I want you to participate and write your answers in the comments, in the chat, because after all, this is interactive English. This is what you're supposed to do. This is my expectation. So I'm giving you part of the idiom. It's not good to keep things up. If you're having problems, you should talk about them. So there's one word missing. You can see that the part of the idiom is up. It's not good to keep things up. If you're having problems, you should talk about them. So what phrase are we talking about that would fit this context? And yeah, this is one that I feel like you would often use. It is an idiom, so I think it is a little more often used in casual conversation, but still one that I think is useful, one that you can use in casual conversation, especially if somebody is going through a tough time and they're keeping things in, their anger, their frustration, and you say, hey, it's not good to keep things bottled up. I saw a couple answers. Perfect. Excellent. Well done. If you're having problems, you should talk about them. So in this case, we're talking about to bottle something up. And that means to suppress or hide emotions. This is something that, to be perfectly honest, we can all relate to this. I think at one point or another, something's happened. We've had some emotional distress, and we just bottle things up. It's not a good thing. It happens. And that's why I said I feel like this is one that you could certainly use in conversation. You're talking to someone and you're talking about yourself. And yeah, I just bottled things up. Or talking to someone else, hey, you shouldn't bottle things up. Here are a couple example sentences. I just want to give you a little more context so that you have a better understanding, especially if this is new. If you keep bottling up your anger, it might eventually explode at the wrong time. I think that's true. And the next sentence, it's healthier to talk about your problems than to bottle them up. So to bottle something up. Very good phrase. All right, let's keep going. I saw some great answers in there, especially, all right, from our members, Lolly, Kevin, good to see you. How about, what do you think about this one? After crying for a while, she together and face the situation. So I gave you two of the to indicate that there are two missing words. And the final word in this idiom, this phrase, is together. Think about the context. After crying for a while, she together and faced the situation. So this is another one that I feel like is often used because we're in these situations where whether you're crying, you're sad, you're really angry, there's a lot of emotion. And I'm kind of giving you a hint. That is a key word when thinking about this phrase, emotion. And I see some people like not put yourself together. You're close. You're on the right track. So in this case, we're talking about the phrase to pull yourself together. She was able to pull herself together and face the situation. So if you were to use it or you're telling someone else, look, you need to pull yourself together. In that case, you're talking about regaining control of your emotions, whether it's sadness, anger, And it would be more of a negative emotion, and you're trying to tell someone, get control, pull yourself together. Or maybe you're talking about yourself. I need to pull myself together. Keep in mind, we are going to use that reflexive pronoun, myself, himself, herself, yourself, to pull yourself together. Just because I thought this was a humorous picture right here, like this cat sitting there nonchalantly just saying, hey, pull yourself together. The cat has it under control emotionally. Then yeah, I think telling the other person, pull yourself together. So one thing to keep in mind is pull yourself together is talking about emotion. There's another phrase that sounds similar, is to get your act together. To get your act together is more about getting organized and doing things efficiently and effectively. Sometimes I hear people confuse those two. So pull yourself together is more emotion. Get your act together is more organization. Let's keep going, because I told you I have quite a few words and phrases that I want to share with you today, because this topic it's very important, but there's a lot to discuss when it comes to our health. What do you think about this? Sorry, I forgot. I've got on right now. So there are a few words missing. And I think I would not be surprised if there is another phrase, idiom, that would fit, but I don't think it would be the best in this situation. We're talking about health, but again, maybe. So I'll leave it there to give you a moment to think about this idiom. Sorry, I forgot. I've got on right now. So I'm giving you part of the idiom. Hopefully it makes it a little easier to think of the phrase that I'm referring to in this context. Somebody forgets something. What would you say? I mentioned that there's probably one of two responses, at least that I can think of right now. But the one that I'm trying to lead you towards, as far as forgetting something, and that would be the primary thing that we're referring to. In that case, like I've got a lot on my mind right now. The other idiom, when you got a lot on your mind, in this case, you're talking about you're mentally preoccupied. And when that happens, you forget something. We're talking about, in this case, like mental health. You got a lot on your mind and you're just preoccupied. The other phrase, which I'm seeing right now, yes, when you get a lot on your plate, that would fit in that sentence. And sometimes if you have a lot on your plate, you forget things. But when you have a lot on your plate, we're talking, that's more, you're busy. There's a lot of different things going on, and you got a lot of work or other responsibilities. You got a lot on your plate. It's really about being busy. Whereas when you got a lot on your mind, then you're just preoccupied. You're worried about things that could be related to finance or family issues. And in that case, I think it does cause this, mental stress, and you could say you got a lot on your mind. You're thinking about a lot of things. So there is a difference between those two phrases, to have a lot on your mind or have a lot on your plate, but both of them would work in that sentence. To give you a couple more examples with this phrase right here, I've had a lot on my mind lately with work deadlines and family issues. Or he couldn't focus during the meeting because he had a lot on his mind. So just keep in mind the distinction between those two. When you have a lot on your mind, you're just thinking about a lot of different things, not necessarily the things you have to do to make you busy, which would be more you have a lot on your plate. Okay? So I hope that makes sense, the distinction between those two. And let's keep going. Let's move right along with the next one. What do you think? This is one that, well, I don't want to. He hasn't been getting much sleep, so lately he has had a really short. There is one word missing, and the idiom. This is a phrase, two-word phrase, a short. So if somebody's they don't get a lot of sleep lately, you can think of this picture right here. This person seems really angry. They're not getting a lot of sleep, and because of that, maybe it just causes them to get angry. I feel like I would get angry too if I were having to use a rotary phone from decades ago. So once again, there are a couple of words that work. Now, you could say somebody has a short temper. That's perfect. That works. That means the same thing. The other word that I was thinking of means the same as short temper, which is more of an idiom, is to have a short fuse. So whether you said short fuse, short temper, they're interchangeable. They both work. But the idiom, if somebody has a short fuse, it just means that they have a tendency to get angry quickly. They lose their temper quickly. But in this case, short temper, short fuse, they mean the same thing. So generally, you're going to use it with the verb have, to have a short fuse. And I thought this is a good way to remember this little comic right here, because you can kind of visualize where this comes from. And you have this couple there, they're both bombs, and he says he always has a short fuse. So think about like that bomb. The fuse is the time that you would typically have before the explosion. And if there's a short fuse, then it's going to go quickly before that explosion happens. So just as a visual reference, when it comes to this phrase, to have a short fuse and you get angry quickly. I imagine, again, this is something that we can all relate to. Try to make an association of a time when you maybe had a short fuse. You were frustrated, maybe you had a lot on your mind, and you just had a short fuse and you got angry quickly. What about this one right here? Despite his age, he's fit. Now, there's two blanks, but there are actually more words. There are 3 missing words. And this is an idiom. It's an expression that you would use to talk about, well, if I give you the meaning, then I'm giving you too many hints. But can you think of an idiom that begins with the word fit? And in this context, again, we're kind of using it as a compliment. So it has a positive connotation. And I see some great answers. I think once it comes in, then yes, everybody's like, oh yes, I know the answer. Well done, Lali Ganara, Miranda. Fit as a fiddle. So this is an expression or an idiom that you can use when talking about somebody's physical fitness, and you're just saying they're in good health, that you are fit as a fiddle. Now, it doesn't necessarily, you have to use this for people that are older. You can, but really just commenting on anybody's health and saying that, yes, they're in really good health, fit as a fiddle. So one thing I'd like to point out, because we're using as, this is a simile. We're making a comparison. Now, with similes, you could use like or as. In this case, you wouldn't use like. You wouldn't say fit like a fiddle. Think of this as more of an idiom. It's a fixed expression. Fit as a fiddle. Somebody's fit as a fiddle. You just ran a marathon, you must be fit as a fiddle. Despite working long hours, he manages to stay fit as a fiddle with daily workouts. I would like to think that I am fit as a fiddle, but that's just it's just not true. I'm not fit as a fiddle. I would like to be. I'm trying to be. So what do you think? Here's the next one. After a few weeks of rest, this is like, think about the doctor is saying this to you as the patient. You have some injury, and the doctor's saying, after a few weeks of rest, you will be on. Again, there's more than 2 words missing. I don't know why I didn't put all the individual spaces, but there is we're going to use on. So you will be on in no time. Now, a key indicator or something to help you, think of that final phrase, in no time. This is a collocation with the idiom. You will be in no time. So what idiom are you going to use in this situation? You're injured and the doctor says, look, you just need to get some rest, but then you'll be on in no time. Look at the picture, because I'm using that to try to give you a little bit of a hint. And in this case, I don't see I don't see any answers just yet. The phrase, the idiom that I'm talking about is back on your feet. You'll be back on your feet in no time. So when you say somebody is going to be back on their feet, it means that they're going to recover from an illness or some trouble. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have an injury to your foot. Maybe you have some illness, and because of that, you have to stay in bed and get a lot of rest. You could still use this and say, look, I hope you'll probably be back on your feet next week and you'll feel much better and you recover from this illness or injury. To give you a little more context with this, I thought I'd share some news headlines with you. Let's see if you understand the first one. It's supposed to be, it's just a joke. So the first headline is podiatry team getting you back on your feet. All right, very hilarious pun. So podiatrist is a foot doctor. So they're trying to use this idiom to make a joke, saying that the foot doctor is, of course, going to get you back on your feet. And then the next headline, 4 steps to get back on your feet financially after identity fraud. I chose this headline because I wanted to share with you that it can be used in other examples as well. When you think of recovering from something, an illness or trouble, of course, we think of our health, but you could also think about, well, one's financial health. And it also can be used in that context. Like something happened, financially, and it's like, look, I need to get back on my feet and recover from this trouble, this issue. So, well, let's keep going. I forget how many idioms I have because then I'm going to move into some other different topics. But what do you think? I've been feeling lately from all the travel. In this case, I'm not giving you any word because I feel like if I did, it would just make it incredibly easy. But what do you think? What phrase would fit here? And there are probably quite a few different, words that you could use when you're trying to express this. You've been feeling lately from all the travel. So if somebody's traveling a lot, they're probably feeling extremely tired. And in this case, you could say you've been feeling lately from all of your travel. Of course, you could use a word like exhausted. That works. Drained. But a phrase that has a similar meaning, and we're talking about one that you would use when talking about health. Worn out, that would work. That's not the phrase that I'm thinking of. Under the weather, that might happen. But under the weather is more you're getting sick. That's not the one I was thinking of. But again, there are multiple words or phrases that could fit this situation. What I was thinking of, or what one I want to share with you is run down. So again, I saw a lot of answers like exhausted, jet lag, burnt out. Those all work because this is what happens if you're traveling a lot, you're tired, you're exhausted. But run down is another phrase that you can use that means you're just feeling very tired or exhausted and you feel run down. Here are some examples. He was so run down from stress that he caught a cold. Or I always feel run down at the end of the semester and you're just exhausted. So think of this phrase more as a synonym for really exhausted and really tired and you just feel run down. So here is the last idiom, actually, and then we're going to move on to the next part. This is one that maybe this is new for some of you, maybe not. I feel like every time I say that, then I see all these answers in the chat, and they get the right response. He had to go to repair his shoulders. So we're talking about an idiom that includes the verb go and then a missing word, another missing word. Repairing the shoulder. Look at the picture. The picture should help because that's basically what the idiom means and what is happening. So he had to go to repair his shoulder. So in this picture, you can see that some individual is having surgery. So in that case, I'm basically giving you a major hint. What idiom could you use that means the same thing, to have surgery? Of course, you could say, you had to undergo surgery to repair his shoulder. That works. But there's an idiom that means the same thing, to undergo surgery. It is an idiom, so it's more casually used, And yes, the answer, to go under the knife. So if you are telling somebody like next week, I got to go under the knife and they're going to, do something, you're basically just saying you're going to have surgery, to go under the knife. I feel like this is one that you're not probably going to use as often. I feel like when people are talking about surgery, it is more serious and they may choose a little more formal phrases like to undergo surgery. In that case, I think would probably be more commonly used because idioms are more casual. But if you want to use another idiom that means the same thing, to go under the knife. Here is, again, just to give you a little visual context. This is a comic. It's for Halloween. It's a Halloween comic. And he says, I went under the knife. Do you like it? And he had that surgery, and now he is a jack-o'-lantern. So let me know. We're going to keep going. But if you learn something new, a new idiom, let me know. You can hit a heart or a like or something in the comments right there. And that way I know you're building your vocabulary, you're learning new words and phrases. Just because you get exposed to an idiom for the first time, I don't expect you to remember it. It's all about getting exposure, learning the word, seeing how it's used in context, and then slowly changing it from your passive vocabulary to making it active vocabulary, putting it up here in your active memory. Let's talk about some common acronyms when it comes to health. So the first one, again, this is fill in the blank. It is just one acronym that is missing. People with often struggle with focus, but many also show remarkable creativity and energy. I'm giving you the meaning, essentially, when I give you this example sentence. So what acronym would you use? And then I'll tell you the answer, and I'll actually tell you what the acronym means, and again, give you some more examples. So these, I think, are highly useful and commonly used when people are having discussions about health or talking about someone else and what they're going through. So people with this condition often struggle with focus, but many also show remarkable creativity and energy. What do you think? This is, I think, a very common acronym when it comes to one's health. So I'm surprised I'm not seeing any answers in there. Okay, now they're coming in. Perfect. So yes, you guys are right. ADHD. That is the acronym that I'm referring to. And this is something that I said it's common because I think a lot of people experience this, and it's not like, again, I'm not a healthcare professional. I don't feel it's like it's either you have it or you don't. It is a bit of a spectrum. So you could be on like the low end of having ADHD, or it could be more severe for some people. It stands for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And it's characterized by inattentive, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. I'm confident, and again, I don't know all of you personally, but I imagine that you know somebody who has ADHD. I can think of a bunch of people just off the top of my head that I've met that have some level of ADHD, and that's why I said I imagine you do as well. So this is a very common acronym that you're going to hear, and you'll hear people talk about it a lot. You're not going to hear people use really attention deficit. They may say attention deficit disorder, but it's most of the time people are just going to say ADHD. I think overwhelmingly that is the acronym they're going to use. I thought just to keep it light, I thought these were a little humorous. ADHD, your secrets are safe with me, because there was a good chance that I wasn't listening. And if somebody says, look, I have ADHD, so you need to be way more interesting in order to remember this person, to make an impression, because there is a lot of struggle with focus if somebody has ADHD. How about this one? This is another, I think, common one. Many veterans return home with this acronym, requiring long-term support and therapy. So most of the time, I feel like it's used in this context when we're talking about soldiers who have gone off to war, and it affects people profoundly and deeply, and then they come home and they experience what? What acronym fits in here? So I told you that I think overwhelmingly you'll hear it in this context when talking about people that were in the military, that served, in some capacity and were in war, and they may return home with PTSD. So PTSD, as I think some of you already wrote in there, you beat me to it. Post-traumatic stress disorder. It is a condition caused by experiencing or witnessing a traumatic event. Now, I told you that I feel like often you'll hear it in the context of veterans or soldiers who are in war. It does not mean that it has to involve some type of war. There are numerous traumatic experiences, traumatic events in which somebody could then experience PTSD and develop this. So it doesn't have to be war. I just want you to keep that in mind. It's really this condition caused from, it could be a number of traumatic events, but it would be something that would be, I'm really emphasizing the word traumatic because that is what it would entail. So here is the next one. The doctor scheduled an to get a clearer image of the patient's brain. Once again, I think you'll know this because this is something that's common, and I think obviously an acronym that you should know. If you go to the doctor, this is something you may need, and I don't know if you need to communicate in English, but if you're in a situation where you do, this is a great acronym to know. So you kind of have an idea of what the meaning is, a clear image of the patient's brain, and you schedule N. The other key word here is that we're using the article N, which tells you that the vowel sound of this acronym is the acronym is going to begin with a vowel sound. So the acronym that we're referring to is an MRI. It's scheduled an MRI, which stands for magnetic resonance imaging. And this is, again, it's an acronym that you're going to use. You're not often going to hear people use the individual words. They're just going to say MRI. This medical imaging technique used to visualize internal body structures. But again, one that comes up quite often. Even if you're not in the doctor and you're telling somebody about this treatment that you had, or you had to get an MRI, or you knew someone else that needed to get an MRI. So keep that in mind. This is a good acronym. I feel like in a way, all of these acronyms are fairly common. And hopefully you're familiar with most of them. If you are, again, let me know. Hit that like button. It tells me that that this is a good reminder if you've learned this before, and just to bring these words and phrases back up, and hopefully you're learning some new ones as well. The is equipped to handle patients with life-threatening conditions. So in this case, we're talking about, well, I'll give it away, like, to handle patients with life-threatening conditions. This is a part of the hospital. And you're handling patients with life-threatening conditions. And I would say the ER stands for emergency room. I guess it would fit in this. I'm thinking after you go to the ER, which is where you may go under the knife and have surgery, but if you have to stay in the hospital, then they may keep you in this part of the hospital where you have this life-threatening condition, and this is the area where these patients may stay. And I think a lot of it, again, you got it, the ICU. It stands for the intensive care unit. This is an acronym that you may hear people say the individual words, and they say, well, so-and-so was in the intensive care unit, or they were in intensive care, or you could just say the ICU, a hospital unit that provides treatment for critically ill patients, the ICU. This is, I'm curious, with some of these, I'm always curious to see how people respond if you actually know them. This is probably one that I feel like is a little more difficult than the other ones because it is well, we're referring to a specialist here. I'll go ahead and tell you. So if you're having issues with your sinuses, you should probably go see what? What acronym? What specialist would you go see? I've already told you that this is a medical specialist. And if it's a problem with the sinuses, then this is the specialist that you would make a doctor's appointment with, and you would go in and see them. Of course, this person is a doctor, but it is again, you would say they're a specialist. And what do you think? So problems with the sinus or with your ears, as well as with your throat, that would be the specialist that you would go see, because they're really all connected. So we're talking about an ENT, ear, nose, and throat doctor. That's simple enough what it stands for: ear, nose, throat. So an ENT is a medical specialist dealing with conditions of the ears, nose, and throat, of course. This is the last one. And then I got some more. Don't go anywhere. I told you I got a lot of words that I want to go through today. My roommate is constantly washing his hands. I think he has. Now, I said when we started doing these acronyms, and we talked about ADHD, and I said this is a very common one. I think this is another one that is commonly used, and people will use this acronym loosely, in my opinion. That it is a condition that, you would be, somebody would be medically diagnosed and say, okay, yes, this person has this condition. But I feel like it's used loosely to refer to a lot of people who, I don't want to give it away. I was about to say it, but I think you guys, I said the fact that everybody's writing the response in there tells me, yes, you're familiar with it. You've heard of it. I'm talking about OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. So I said it's used loosely, that if people have certain obsessive tendencies, like whether it's washing your hands or like the shoes need to be lined up perfectly, they might use this loosely and say, oh yeah, my brother's OCD or this person's OCD, even though they technically have not been medically diagnosed. So OCD, this involves unwanted thoughts, obsessions, and repetitive behaviors, which are the compulsions. And you could say somebody has OCD. I forgot this was in here, but this is this was perfect. As far as like OCD, it says the hardest OCD decision of my life. That the sale is $39.99. Of course, you want to round it up to 40, but as soon as you do that, then it's you're not going to get the 10 gallons exactly. And this is referring to filling up gas at a gas station. But I thought this was funny and really encapsulates this idea of OCD. So, whoops, sorry about that. Okay. Let me see. Hopefully, maybe this is gonna, maybe I'll readjust this as we go through this. So let's talk about mental health. Again, I have some words and phrases that I want to go through and quiz you on this. And yeah, I'm gonna have to adjust myself as we go through this. Autistic individuals may identify as what? I'm giving you the first letter of the word and the meaning. Describes people whose neurological development is atypical. This is a picture from a movie, and bonus points if you can tell me who that is and the name of the movie. But if we're talking about autistic individuals may identify as what? What is the word that we're talking about? This is a word that I feel like is more commonly used nowadays. And it is one that I think you'll hear from time to time, whether you're having a conversation or you're reading an article in a newspaper. And yes, I think you got it. Excellent. Paulina, well done. Christina, Sarah, neurodivergent. And I apologize for just having to correct these videos as we go through this. So autistic individuals may identify as neurodivergent. The meaning: a person whose neurological development is atypical. And you could say someone is neurodivergent. Paulina, well done. bonus points for you. This is a picture of Dustin Hoffman from the movie Rain Man a long time ago, in which his character in the movie is autistic. Excellent movie. In case you haven't seen it, it is, I guess, maybe, gosh, how old? About 30? Gosh, I feel like I'm old now. I feel this movie was back in the early 90s, maybe. So one that I still recommend. Great movie. Her headaches were determined to be... This is more difficult, I feel like. This vocabulary, we're getting a little more specific. I told you this is advanced, but we're talking about physical symptoms caused or worsened by mental factors. And you could say that, well, again, I don't want to give it away, but the word starts with a P. Her headaches were determined to be these physical symptoms caused or worsened by mental factors. So if you have these, some mental stuff going on, and it actually worsens these physical symptoms, then this can be referred to as... Anyone? Bueller? No? Well, excellent. Psychosomatic. Yes. So that is the word that we're looking for. Her headaches were determined to be psychosomatic, which refers to these physical symptoms caused by worsened or mental factors. Again, this is definitely a little more specific when it comes to mental health. Here is my next question. Obesity is often seen as a in patients with type 2 diabetes. Obesity is often seen as a in patients with type 2 diabetes. The meaning of this is the presence of more than one disorder in the same person. Once again, this is a word that you will more likely come across if you're reading a news article about health or listening to a report on health. You could still use it in a conversation depending on what you're talking about. But obesity, type 2 diabetes. So we're talking about the presence of more than one disorder. So if we're talking about the presence of more than one disorder, the same person, we're talking about a comorbidity. That is the meaning of this word. So I told you that this is a word that you may not use as often in just general conversation, but one you could still come across if you're reading. It doesn't even have to be a health journal, but a news article talking about health and a new scientific discovery, and you may come across that word, and they're talking about a comorbidity. How about this? It starts with an R, can be cultivated through therapy and support. We're talking about the ability to recover from setbacks or trauma. Now, even though this is used medically, as far as mental health is concerned, this is a word that is used in other contexts. As far as, well, I don't want to, again, give it away, but this is, I think, a more common word because it's not only just used in mental health, but somebody's ability to overcome problems or issues or setbacks. So if we're talking about the ability to recover from setbacks or trauma, can be cultivated through therapy and support. I'm talking about not rehab, but resilience. So I told you that this word is more common because you might hear people use it in other contexts as well, your ability to overcome a tough situation. And you could say not just resilience as a noun, but say that somebody is resilient and use it as an adjective. How about this right here? So setting boundaries is essential to prevent two words. I'm giving you the first letter of each. In high stress environments. We're talking about this feeling mentally and emotionally exhausted. You're run down, all right? So when you're run down, this feeling of mental and emotionally exhausted, you're emotionally run down, you could say that you're experiencing what? Often due to chronic stress. Two words. I feel like this is especially the second one is one that you hear. So what we're talking about, I think everybody, you got the first word, emotional, but what I'm referring to is emotional burnout. So burnout is a word that I think is very commonly used when talking about mental health. You experience burnout from a lot of stress, or you could just say you're burnt out. But if we're talking about emotional burnout, then it is just this really feeling emotionally exhausted for one reason or another. Now, you could say to prevent, if I wanted to get grammatically, I would say prevent an emotional breakdown in high stress situations. But I think that phrase works as well. If we're talking about an emotional breakdown, is another common collocation and another phrase that, you'll hear people use when talking about one's mental state. This is, I think, just trying to capture this idea. When you leave things for tomorrow and tomorrow arrives. This is an example. I was trying to find an example of emotional burnout. And I think Kermit the Frog, that's kind of what it looks like. You postpone things till tomorrow, and then that day here, and you're just like, oh gosh, I can't do it. So I have one more, and then I want to talk about some physical health vocabulary. He began practicing 2 words, all right, daily to stay present and focused. We're referring to methods to stay present and reduce anxiety, especially panic or trauma-related disorders. And your methods, the second word is more of a kind of a synonym for methods. What are you going to say? We're talking about what? You're trying to stay present. So that is a key word that you to think about. So if you're trying to stay present, you're reducing anxiety, you're going to practice, quite possibly, some different grounding techniques. So that is the phrase that I'm talking about, these methods to stay present, reduce anxiety. And grounding techniques could be something as simple as just, breathing exercises. And you could refer to them as these grounding techniques to stay present. Let's look at the last part, physical health. And once again, I have some other words and phrases related to physical health. Some of them I think are a little more commonly used than others, but what do you think? This, I think, is definitely a word that you need to know, and you probably are familiar with it already. But if we're talking about exercise can significantly improve heart health. So what type of exercise? The meaning of this word is just related to the heart and blood vessels. So this is a word that I feel like you probably have heard of. Again, depending on the context, I don't know how often you may use it in casual conversation, but I think it's incredibly important. This is a useful one when you want to talk about the heart. So I wouldn't really say heart exercise. Instead, I'm going to use another word, which is a common collocation, exercise of the heart. Now, I see cardio, yes. I would say cardio. I guess you could say cardio exercise. I'd probably, instead, when talking about exercise, I'd probably just say the whole word and say cardiovascular. So cardio is simply short for cardiovascular. Cardiovascular exercise can significantly improve heart health. What I was trying to say before, I guess you could say cardio exercise. That works. Sometimes I feel like you could just say cardio and just say, look, cardio can really significantly improve health improvement. Sometimes I feel like when people talk about cardio, they're referring to cardiovascular exercise. But any of those would work. So well done. Like I said, I feel like you know that. This is another one, very important, very common. Back pain can greatly reduce quality of life. So in this case, we're talking about a condition that persists over time. That is the meaning of this word, commonly used when talking about physical ailments like your back. And this is something that I experience. and I'm dealing with it. I'm trying to manage it, and I'm talking about back pain, persisting over time. So the key word in this case, well done, Lolly Cookbook, nice, chronic back pain. So this is an adjective that you can use quite often with a lot of different, like chronic back pain, chronic stress. And if any condition persists over time, you can use it with this word, chronic something, commonly used. So like I said, a word that I definitely think you should know. We're using it in this next example sentence. Chronic can lead to serious diseases. So this is the meaning is the body's response to injury or infection, often causing redness, swelling, or pain. So that redness, swelling, or pain is really the meaning, and we're talking about chronic what? What do you think? So when we have this swelling, this redness in response to something, another word that I feel like you're familiar with, maybe you use it actively, which is great, and this is just a reminder, chronic inflammation. So inflammation is another word that you could use with chronic, and somebody experiences chronic inflammation, and it just persists over time. So what do you think? He's now I'm giving you the three words. There are three missing words for someone in his 60s. Just means physically fit. It is more commonly used. So once again, I think if you don't know this phrase, this is a good one to learn, but I think it is more common, so you may be familiar with it, and hopefully you're able to use this phrase because you may talk about somebody. Instead of like saying, well, he's physically fit, I would say, well, he's in good shape, or he's in really good shape. All right, well done. Excellent. Saw some good answers. Well done, Lolly. So once again, I have some news headlines to give you a little more context. So we talk about good shape to talk about physically fit, of course, but you can use it in other contexts as well, talking about like a good condition. The economy is in good shape. Growth is on track. Or 5 signs that your heart may not be in good shape, that your heart may not be in good condition, and diet tips to improve the heart and health. So think about that. It can be used in different contexts, but a very common and useful phrase. Good shape, great shape, that's excellent shape. There are other adjectives you could put in there. How about this? Getting enough sleep can... This is a little more challenging. We're talking about strengthening your body's defenses. So when you hear body's defenses, maybe it does make you think of this 2-word phrase, but I took out the verb as well as a possessive adjective, even though I probably could have included them. But this is true. In order to strengthen your defenses, you got to get enough sleep, and that can what? What would you say? So when I say body's defenses, hopefully then your mind might go to, I'm just giving you part of it, immune system. And you want to get enough sleep to do what? To your immune system. Well done, Julia. To boost your immune system. So your immune system is a phrase that you need to know. Your body's defenses. To boost your immune system is a common collocation with this. So you wouldn't really raise your immune system or anything like that. You want to boost your immune system. How about this next one? Increases the risk of heart disease. So we're talking about a way of living with little or no physical activity. This is another phrase that I think is becoming more commonly used because people, such as myself, you work remotely, you're not getting out as much, you feel like you need to get out, be a little more active, and sometimes, I feel like I have and then I use this phrase. And in this case, it does. It can reduce the risk of heart disease, but we're talking about a way of living with little or no physical activity. So what we're talking about, yes, well done, a sedentary lifestyle. So sedentary just refers to little or no movement. And of course, lifestyle, you know the meaning. So this is a collocation. A sedentary lifestyle is one with little or no physical activity. Not generally a good thing as far as your physical health goes, that it's always good to be, well, active and get some exercise. I gave a lot of examples with cats today. I don't know why. I thought they were all kind of cute. So this is a good one. Sedentary lifestyle is unhealthy. But I choose recumbent. So this is funny. In case you're wondering, recumbent just means like lying down. So it's like, you don't want to say, well, it's not a sedentary lifestyle. I'm just saying it's recumbent. I'm lying down. And yes, that cat does look, recumbent. So here are all of the words and phrases. Again, I apologize for this little mishap with the video. I went over a lot today. We covered a lot. Hopefully you are familiar with many of these words and phrases. I do think they're a little more advanced only because we're talking about a specific topic. And all of these words and phrases are related to your health. If you didn't know some of them, that's great. You learned some new words, phrases, acronyms. Let me know by hitting that like button. You can hit the like button right now or hit it in the chat or the hearts or whatever. That just tells me that you learned something new and you're getting some value out of these vocabulary lessons. And just once again, if you're interested in practicing and improving your speaking skills, check out that link down below in the description if you want to join my speaking course. So very important topic, very useful. Go out, try to use some of these words and phrases because I think we talk about health all the time, whether it's physical health or mental health. So I thank you guys for watching and participating in this lesson, and I will see you soon for another lesson in the future. So long.